Hi, welcome everybody to our webinar this morning. Humans and Work Evolution are happy to present the post-pandemic leader, building a high-performing hybrid workplace. We'll just give everybody a minute or so to be able to connect. If we have any kind of stragglers, give them a second to be able to make sure that their audio is working, they can hear us well. So we'll just give it few seconds before we kick off. And again, thank you very much for joining. We've got a very, very interesting session planned for you. Dr. Laura Hambly is here, and we'll be presenting against, the post-pandemic leader and building high-performance hybrid teams. I'm your host for the next hour, my name is Jag Nidjar. I'm the Director of Sales here at Humans. Work Evolution is an organization that we acquired, some time ago, and is absolutely under the Humans umbrella. And we're so excited to be able to present their tools to the marketplace. It was a great acquisition and such a timely product that they offer for where we are today. So going ahead and kicking it off, I'm your host for this session, Jag Nidjar. I'm here out of our Toronto office. Well, I guess my Toronto home office. I didn't make it into the office this morning because, we're not necessarily post-pandemic yet, but we'll get there. Director of Sales here. If you have any questions, comments, concerns at any point, my email address is right, below my video, as well as we'll provide you with information on how to contact us at the end. So again, thank you very much for joining, the Humans Work Evolution, the post-pandemic leader, building a high-performing hybrid workplace. I'm now going to hand it over to Dr. Laura Hambly, who I'll let her introduce herself. I don't want to leave anything off in terms of credentials. So well versed in these items. Laura.
Oh, well, thank you, Jag. And it's just such a pleasure working with you. And it's also great to see so many names joining us, familiar ones, new ones. So welcome. I'm in Calgary and it is a blizzard right now. So summer was yesterday. It was summer weather yesterday and now there's a blizzard. So anyways, the joy of remote work, right? It's so nice to avoid the bad weather. So we're going to talk about remote work today. We're going to talk about hybrid work. I am a mother of 3 kids. I am an enthusiastic hiker, squash player. I'm an organizational psychologist. I've dedicated my life to making a difference to help leaders, organizations, people thrive at work. And back in 2003, I got involved in an area of research around how do we help remote teams thrive? How do we help leaders build great teams when they're working apart? Because for a few years before that, I found myself on teams working with people in the US, people in Europe that I had never met some of the time. And I thought, wow, this is the way of the future. So essentially, over the years, I got involved in research, thought leadership, and then helping organizations. So I've co-authored a couple of books, Growing the Virtual Workplace, which is actually really heavy. It's about how do we increase telework adoption in cities, but it has a lot of academic content. It was with 3 business school professors. And then there's Anywhere, working in the new area of telecommuting. We published a chapter in there, and that's a book published out of Australia. And in the middle is an article in Scientific American magazine. And I was really proud because my father always ordered Scientific American to the house early on. This is in the 70s when I was growing up. So there'd be stacks of Scientific Americans. And I was really proud. I mean, he hasn't been here for a while on this earth, but when we were published in Scientific American about the first personality profile of remote work and what makes someone successful working remotely and other people struggle, I was really proud that that was in Scientific American for Work Evolution. So we founded Work Evolution 8 years ago to help organizations, and we had created assessment tools to understand leaders, teams, and individuals and how they can thrive when working apart. And this whole notion of working apart from one another, working remotely, it was called all different things. Okay, so I remember sitting at a conference, we were presenting in Hawaii of all places. Yeah, that was strategic. So we were sitting around having blue Hawaiis and saying, what do we call the term? Because everyone and their dog is calling it something different. Some people were calling it just, virtual teams, telecommuting, telework, smarter work, agile work, flexible, flex work, workplace 2.0. It was just, a dog's breakfast of terms. So we ended up landing on distributed. To really get at the point of when you're working apart from your leader and your team, at least some of the time, you may be distributed in the same city with Jag at his home office, me at the Toronto office, etc., or you may be spread across the world, like my amazing mentor, Philip Van Houten. I see him on here too, and he's in Belgium. So we have met before, but he's across the world. So again, distributed can mean all sorts of things. And now this term hybrid work is emerging. The hybrid workplace is a term to reflect the idea that there will still be the office, but we're going to take advantage of this remote work scenario going forward. So I'm going to be using that term, but you'll also hear distributed out of my mouth because it hasn't left me since the blue Hawaiis. Okay. Work. I mean, let's face it, like a lot of work has been, challenging at times. Cubicle land, right? Do we really miss cubicle land? Or do we enjoy having some more flexibility in our lives to work when and where and how we're most happy? So I like this quote on the left: work is an activity, not a place. This one takes a lot to get your head around, and some leaders and managers really resist it because work is a place. So it's actually a way of saying that work should be a verb, not a noun. And I always correct my husband. So he's been working mostly at home, but he goes into the office and he always says, I'm going to work today. Are you going to work today? And I'll say, I'm working every day, right? No matter where I am. And you're not going to work, you're going to the office because you've been working your tail off in your office in the master bedroom, which is a pain in itself. So these are all the drivers. There's so many drivers. So for 7 years before this pandemic hit, we were evangelizing the fact that the workplace needed to change. And we were working with organizations that were more at the cutting edge of this. And they were doing so for different reasons. Some of them would say, we're going to save real estate costs. We run out of space. Why would we get another building when we can just make more flexible use of this space? And people aren't in their offices all the time. They're in meetings, they're traveling, etc. There's the war for talent, right? So people want and crave flexibility. I did a series of presentations on Generation Z or Generation Z in the US and millennials and how they do value flexibility, and employers should be well aware of that. Work-life wellness. If we can save that gut-wrenching commute time, our wellness increases as well. If we can take a walk in the middle of the day more easily, if we can have that flexibility, it means a lot. Diversity and inclusion, I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to save that for later, but rest assured that flexibility is very related to diversity and inclusion. And if you're not paying attention to it, you're going to have some fairness and equity issues. Commute times, soul-sucking. Technology enablement is here, thank goodness. Imagine if we hadn't had Zoom and this pandemic happened like 10 years ago. Ugh, that would have been tougher. Environmental footprint. So I really feel, and I know for a fact, that office buildings are a huge source of emissions, and so are cars on the road. And a single driver in a car, in gridlock, like, come on, right? We're talking about the environment. It's a big, important topic. We need to do our part to say flexible work can actually help this issue. And then COVID-19 comes, so we've been at this for 7 years, evangelizing, passionate about it with our little company, Work Evolution. And then COVID-19 hits. And we have all of this powerful knowledge, tools, resources, thought leadership to help organizations. So we're really excited to be doing that. It's really a lot of fun. So I'm going to do a polling question just to understand who's in the audience, and what would be the top reason your organization would adopt a hybrid workplace? Would it be to reduce real estate, improve employee productivity, talent attraction, so being an employer of choice, and also hiring across different geographies because it no longer matters if they're in the same city? Or would it be talent retention and engaging your current people?
So we'll give everybody just a couple of seconds to be able to go through this. And actually, I think it's 20 more seconds before we go ahead and announce the results. If anybody has any questions at any point, please add them to the chat and send them over to me. I'll be happy to interrupt Laura and ask her a question. Anything we can do to help you understand the content is great.
Yeah, I don't mind questions. It keeps me on my toes. As long as they're nice. No.
That's great. I think we can end the polling now. Perfect. There you go.
Wow. I love this. This is music to my ears. 60% basically said talent retention and engagement. This is great. This is, this is an important driver. And regardless of where the different economies are at, the impacts of the pandemic on economies, I think talent retention and the war for talent is going to be a huge topic in the next 2 years. And following the Spanish flu, there was the roaring 20s, and there's going to be the roaring 20s following this pandemic. I believe that's my belief. And you'll need to be retaining your talent, otherwise they'll go elsewhere. But there's other compelling reasons. 18% of you said saving real estate, and that has environmental implications, money implications, etc. I think that's just great. And then productivity and talent attraction, both very important as well. So thank you for that. That's very, very good to see. Okay, so there's a choice ahead. The choice ahead as we move into return to the office, quote unquote, organizations are facing a key choice. Go back to the way they were before, or progress towards greater flexibility. So it really is a crossroads. And I hear some organizations saying, well, we're a people-focused organization, so got to bring everyone back as soon as we can, or maybe they already have, right? And I say, okay, so that means you're not an organization that values flexibility, right? And you don't value choice, and you don't value empowering your people, so it's, if you value one thing, you got to say, well, what does that mean I don't value? Because you can be a very people-focused organization and be hybrid, rest assured. So the trends. So we dug up, my team, my co-founder, Dr. Tom O'Neill, and my team, we're always digging up what are the latest trends going on in the world of work. And these are a few interesting trends. This one is from the US. 62% of hiring managers are planning for more remote work than before COVID-19. Well, that's kind of a no-brainer. We know this is going to continue in the hiring, and they'll be hiring remote people. And that opens up the door to work in different cities from where you live, which is exciting. This next one is Canadian data. 63% of employees are enjoying working from home. Interesting. 77% of managers are interested in a permanent hybrid work arrangement. Again, very interesting. That is a lot. And that's the latest Canadian data from February of 2021. Gartner, which is US, 82% of business leaders plan to maintain a partial work from home structure after COVID-19. Partial work from home, hybrid, same thing, basically. That is huge. 47% of business leaders are looking for permanent work from home options. And that's interesting too. And those are the ones that are going fully remote. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. That can work in some industries, but it's not recommended in a lot, just to ditch your office space 100%. That has other repercussions. This next set of data here is, this is Canada-wide. The younger generation is particularly drawn to remote work. 61% work remotely at least 3 days a week, prefer to, okay? So it's about preference. And if your 18 to 34-year-old population prefers that, you better be listening to that. Angus Reid, another Canadian source of data, 67% of Canadians do not expect to return to the office as consistently as they did pre-pandemic. Huge. Gallup, we all know Gallup, US workers, 60% have been doing their jobs from home. They prefer to continue working remotely as much as possible. Interesting. Robert Half, which is another US source, this is 33% of professionals currently working from home would look for a new job if they were required to be in office full time. They would say, bye-bye, I'm going where I will get some flexibility. That was April of 2021. Latest data from a week ago or something, that I was in a presentation with SAP yesterday. The data is 47% might quit if remote work was banned, and 41% would go for a lower salary in order to work in a hybrid workplace. So, right? So we need to be paying attention to this as leaders, as HR, as talent management, and whoever you are. This is key. Now, this is a chance
I'm
to.
sorry, Laura.
Yeah.
I've just got to interrupt you real quick.
Yeah.
We had a question come through. How do you deal with managers who are pushing for everyone to come back to the office?
Oh, gee. That is really tough. So it depends on the managers. If they're really analytical folks, right? And a lot of managers are, you need to be presenting the data. You need to build a business case for it. And there is a lot of compelling data to support this cause. Some of the data I just presented would be it. Building a business case for your specific industry, which we help organizations with, is what are the key, what's going on in your industry? What do you need to be aware of, etc. So I would say that that's very important, and getting them to think about the repercussions of bringing everyone back. What are the pros, but what are the cons? Again, sharing the slide about all the drivers, right? The commute times, etc. And I'm actually going to get into more of that as we go along. We're going to talk about managers. So this is a chance to reimagine how we work. So before COVID hit, I mean, I've been an organizational psychologist for 20 or more years now. And I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of people overwhelmed, tired, anxious, challenged, who are unfulfilled in their work. They don't have a sense of purpose, etc. And workplaces, oh, there's so much toxicity. I would always say there's so much toxicity in the workplace. It just creates, like, some of them are just so toxic. And there's a chance now. COVID provides a natural reset. The silver lining of COVID is it's a chance to reimagine work and create a future of work culture that is fulfilling, self-actualizing, aspirational, healthy, well, all this stuff. And that's why I like the green tree here. And I think it's a very important concept to say, like, this is a reset. Seize the day, right? Seize the day to do something different. So we predict at Work Evolution and at Humans that we'll have a hybrid workplace that will be the typical path forward for most organizations. We really recommend, let's retain the positives from the COVID-19 era. And the positives are, it's been a mass experiment in working remotely. It's also been a mass experiment in social isolation and physical isolation, which is not part of remote work. So it's been diluted or confounded with this whole isolation scenario, fear. It's not the ideal pilot, to be honest with you. But nonetheless, we did have some positives. We do have some positives. So going forward, we need to be more intentional and mindful about how we make use of the office. So a mindful and strategic future of work from a talent perspective. So my next section is all about, well, how the heck do we do this? And when you're looking at managers who are resisting, etc., I think you need to look at all the factors, because what I like about this field is there's so many factors at play. There's real estate, office costs, there's tech, there's commute times, there's health, wellness, and mental health, huge topic. So we're going to just delve into some of this. So I like to start high level, where you and your leadership team need to really consider, what type of culture do you want to be known for? And again, think of that slide with the beautiful tree. Do you want to be known as those things, or do you want to be known as the other things of the past? What elements of your pre-pandemic culture do you want to shed? Okay, so maybe engagement levels were low, stress levels were high, who knows, maybe your turnover was higher than you wanted. Those types of outcomes, you can look at the outcomes, but also the descriptions of your culture. What do we want to shed, and what do we want to emphasize in your future of work? How do you want people to feel about working there? What are your values going forward? Again, it's a natural time to reset. So you really, I mean, we recommend you need to develop culture that supports the future of work as you envision it, communicate the vision widely and the reasons driving hybrid work. And we work with a lot of organizations on this very matter. Who do we want to be, and how will hybrid work play out in our organization? So you really need a culture strategy, and that often involves looking at measuring your culture, defining your culture, etc. You need to support the key capabilities for individuals and leaders and teams to thrive in this culture. So you can't just expect a culture will be created and people will naturally just adapt. They need the tools, they need the habits, they need the skills in order to thrive and do well. So I'm going to ask about pain points, because I'm all talking rosy and happy, and we know that it's challenging. So what are the key challenge or top challenge your organization faces? And I didn't include all of the above, but if you think all of the above, add it in the chat. But I do want you to vote on this, please. So what is the top challenge? A, our managers have been thrown into leading remotely and are struggling with trust and communication. So trust communication has all kinds of challenges, and that's what you're hearing or experiencing. Number two, how can we make decisions that promote fairness across the organization, yet still give managers input into their own team's needs? Okay, decisions about extent of remote work, that sort of thing, who can do it. C, we worry about losing aspects of our culture in a hybrid workplace. How do we establish a culture when it is distributed where people still feel connected to our culture? D, how will we successfully onboard new talent when everyone is no longer together daily?
We'll give everybody a few seconds to put in their answers. Laura, we've been getting a lot of questions, and I'm just kind of holding them off because I've seen the presentation before to where they're at, where they'll be more effective. Because I know you're going to be covering off some of the items, but sure. Right to everybody, please continue to send those questions in, and we're more than happy to answer them. And now ending.
Okay. So 57%, hey, that's interesting. So you're worried about losing aspects of your culture. You want a culture where people feel connected when they're working apart some of the time. And that is very, very important. And that's what people miss, is the connection to other human beings face to face. They miss shaking hands, they miss hugging, they miss going out to lunch, to coffee, and that's, no surprise. I think all of us miss that. And I really firmly believe in a hybrid. You can have this. So we're going to talk about ways that you can still have this. And then second place winner was 22%. Our managers are struggling with trust and communication. And this was a struggle long before the pandemic, that we were grappling with and dealing with teams worldwide on the struggle. So I would say that I'm not surprised there. So thank you for that. Now, we're going to get in more to the actual routines of hybrid work. So back in the day before the pandemic, we'll just say pre-pandemic, a lot of organizations that we were coming across had people on site. On site was the default. You come to the office every day, and that's where you work. And remote work, flexible work, that would be ad hoc. Right? Well, I'll let Jag, I trust Jag. I'm his manager. Fridays, he takes care of his mom or whatever. So it's easier if he works from home, like those kind of ad hoc arrangements. So that was what was going on. Now with the pandemic, most of us are remote collaborators, I call it. Like, we're working remotely, right? We're working offsite. We're working primarily from home, and we were thrown and catapulted into it. Again, not a natural pivot to remote work. Now, going forward, the hybrid scenario is partially remote. It's a mix of home and office, and that's what we're going for. And there's two key components to this. This little, it means a job description. So certain jobs fit this partial remote and certain jobs don't, right? Certain jobs are required on site, okay? They need physical resources, equipment, etc. There's things they need on site. If you're at your computer all day, you're not one of those people. Okay, if you're at your computer all day, you could be a remote collaborator, no problem, or partial remote. But again, that just depends on your job description. The other part is your personality, how you are wired as a human being, and that's where we get excited at Work Evolution. So the extent to which a person works from the office should depend on these factors. Their position and role, no brainer, right? Absolutely, and that's pretty easy to assess. That's the good news. Their personality, which we've worked our careers on assessing and is very important, and I'll talk about a bit more. The needs of the team, right? If the team needs to be together for a certain purpose and the Zoom platforms won't cut it, okay, yeah, the needs of the team are very important. Home office scenario. If you have little kids running around, you don't have a private space, etc., it may not be feasible, right? No matter how hard you try, you can't work in the master bedroom closet. The location is another factor of how far you live from the office, etc. Right? So all these are important, okay, and more. That's why we have the etc. We don't have time to talk about all of them. There's so many, but we're talking about personality, being psychologists, and this is the Scientific American stuff I talked about in the idea. There's a bell curve. So at the top are some people can work remotely all the time. Okay, so when you hear of Facebook, we're going fully remote, companies like that, right? Okay, right? So again, this all the time in certain industries, sure, but there's very few people that actually thrive with that. There's about 10%, give or take, that can really thrive with that. And all of us have been thrown into it, or a lot of us. So, right? We're thrown into something that we don't really thrive at with our personalities. At the bottom, some people struggle working remotely. They really struggle. And they're the ones that say, I can't, it's just not for me. And they just can't wait to run back to the office, not walk, run back. And then there's most of us in the middle, a 2-3 day split. Most of us like a blend, and our personalities suit a blend. That is good. This is data that's been proven over and over again, evidence-based data. And so we created a personality profiler. We launched it about 6 years ago, and it's based on the degree of fit. And all of us have a profile. It only takes 12 minutes to do. It's fully automated, so you get your results with Dr. Laura's little videos explaining your scores. So if you get an orange score and you say, right, my locus of control is really low, and then you can hear me explain how that's, not a bad thing, but how it could be a challenge for your remote work, right? So it's not about being a gatekeeper. It's about saying, how can we develop people and support their productivity and engagement by looking at what some of your pain points might be and how to do it better, but also what's your ideal fit. So this tool spits it out for people. Your ideal fit is a moderate fit, and it's a 2-3 day split sort of thing, or it's a low fit, a cautionary fit. And ideally, you want to be at the office more than, much more than remote, etc. So very, very interesting. Just wanted to share that with you. I really encourage you to avoid an either or scenario. Okay, so again, 100% remote work is not the ideal scenario for most people. Likewise, 100% at the office is not the ideal scenario for most people. So I'd be happy to talk to your leaders. If they're resisting, get me in. My team, we really like trying to turn around the mindsets of leaders. And the good news here is that some of them have already been turned around just by working this way. And I've heard CEOs saying, gee, I was so against it and I tried it and it actually works. And my company's profits are higher than ever. People are working hard. Wow, it works, right? So if your CEO is one of those, good, awesome. If they're not, you got a challenge. You got a challenge on your hands. But that's okay. Challenges are good. They keep us growing and learning. leveling the playing field, equity, diversity, and inclusion. This is something we're talking a lot about at Humans. We're helping a lot of organizations with. It's a key topic these days. And people say, well, how is that applied to hybrid work, though? Well, it sure is, because basically there's challenges with hybrid work in the way that you people are rolling it out. There's the stigmatization of those opting for more remote work. Okay, so if Jag's saying, I need more remote work, I want to work remote because of my elder care situation, and he's getting stigmatized for it. He's getting, oh, Jag just is slacking, right? Or he just wants to golf more, or those are stigmatization issues that can be going on. And we need to watch out for those. FaceTime in the office could lead to unfair advantages and favoritism. So the person who comes in every day, they don't have the right home office, for example. They come in every day, they're getting more attention from the boss, they're getting more promotions, their career's progressing. That's favoritism, versus the person who's working just as hard 3 days from home is being passed over for some opportunities. Keeping remote workers out of sight and keeping them out of mind, just because they're out of sight, they shouldn't be out of mind. You should be working as a leader to keep them fully included. You need to engage remote workers equally in meetings. So oftentimes if you have a meeting where some people are together and some are remote, you should ask the remote people first in a round table. Let's hear from Jag, he's remote. Let's hear from our remote people. Otherwise you can forget that they are in the meeting. And we require a new definition of performance. This is a big one. We require that we don't measure performance by butts and seats. We measure it by results. Okay. And this is a huge shift of, oh, well, I can't see my people. How do I know they're working? Well, how do you know they're working if you can see them? Right? Like, let's be honest here. What are they producing? It's harder work to be a manager. You need to be really on top of what is getting done. And managers can resist this because it's easier to just have them around and think that they are working. And some of them are working really hard. But just because you're the person staying till 7 at night to impress your boss, you're probably not effective all of those 11 hours. Okay, let's just say you are not a robot. So equity and diversity, you should be asking yourself, is your organization excluding deliberately or subconsciously those who are working remotely? It can happen subconsciously too, that you don't even realize it. And some managers are not wired to work remotely themselves, so they assume that other people aren't, and they put their own lens on other people. Other people should be like me, and why are they like this? And you have to really ask yourself also, do people feel included, whether they're near or far? The only way to know this is to ask it, is to do pulse surveys, is to do check-ins. You need to have a good pulse on those remote workers. Are people prevented from making the choices that best fit their personal scenarios? Okay, so I have a disability, I have all my equipment at home now, during COVID, I have all my equipment, and then you're going to force me to come back to work in a situation where it's not as good for my eyesight. The bright lights are a pain for my vision, or whatever it is. We need to take into account physical, mental challenges. There's going to be a lot of anxiety about returning to the office when people feel forced to, especially with the lingering pandemic risks. And I just think it's a can of worms for mental health and for physical health, because I really believe mental and physical are tightly tied and wrapped together. So this is an idea. Yeah.
So just to interrupt, this is kind of a follow-up question from the last one. Our leaders worry that people are just less productive remotely. I know you touched on this briefly, but how do we build a case for how they are?
Yes, so there's two different ways to do that. One is the data that are out there. So we have studies like that. Like Stanford has a good study, but there's a lot of different studies that show productivity is 10 to 20% higher, data from around the world. So there's here's the data. Well, but what about in our case? So then what you need to be doing is measuring your productivity, right? Like you need to be able to say, well, no, our customer satisfaction, our sales, our revenues, our profit margin, whatever it is, you need to be measuring that. And you need to say, well, let's measure it. Has it dropped significantly because of remote work, or is it because the confound of the economic conditions affecting our industry or whatever? You need to get really good at measuring what is going on as an organization so that you have the case to build on performance.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. So this is an idea I had about once agreed upon, because there needs to be a process to agree upon this. It's not like, hey guys, I want to work 5 days from home. Well, no, we got to talk about your team, your job, etc. But I feel like sometimes the manager lens gets all the focus of, no, I need you in. I need you in to get work done. Okay. So there needs to be some sort of fair process going on here, where the arrangement can be determined and declared. And once you declared it, I think if it was in our signatures, so I'm Laura Hambley, I'm 3 days in the office, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm 2 days at home, Tuesday, Friday. That's what I've been doing for 12 years. And I love it. I love my little routine. I get a lot done. You know, COVID hits, obviously it put a dent in that, right? So, but a counseling practice operates out of the office here. So that remains open. I've been able to come in, you know, and work from here, you know, to get out of the house. And my master bedroom is my husband's office. That, you know, that doesn't go over well when you're trying to grab your lipstick and he's in a board meeting. So that's never fun. So we've had some interesting encounters. So hybrid leader capabilities is what I want to talk about next. So when you're looking at your transition to hybrid, we at Work Evolution, we think about leaders, teams, employees, and cultures, right? So you got to kind of think of all these different impacts and challenges that are opportunities going on. And one of them that we talk about a lot is the hybrid leadership. So you need to have your leaders well positioned here. So when your leaders are resisting, etc., why not help them to do it better, to make it easier? Because one of the reasons they resist is because it's harder. And it unveils some of their weaknesses, vulnerabilities, right? They're just like, wait a minute, ego, like, no, I need my people in the office to get work done. Well, you need the habits, you need the skills in order to help your people thrive, no matter where they are. And it's going to make your job easier. It's going to make it easier because it's a challenge managing people in a hybrid scenario, because some are here, some are there. It's going to be harder than it was when we were purely remote. But harder doesn't mean worse. Harder just means like, let's rise to the challenge, because if you bring everyone back, then you're not taking advantage of all the other benefits. And then you're going to have a talent retention issue, an engagement issue. So that'll be another set of issues to deal with later. That'll be worse because you're going to lose good people. So the challenges here, as a leader, you need to be creating meaning and purpose. You need to be inspiring and empowering people. I would say the leaders who are good at this are the best ones out there that everyone wants to work for. Unfortunately, there are a number of them who are not good at this, but they need to start getting better at it, especially if you want your culture going forward to be a better culture, like that green tree slide I had. So 4 things here, very important. One is a fair and consistent process to determine remote work utilization. Again, fair and consistent of how this is determined, and also respectful of the diversity involved. Okay, this is a diversity and inclusion issue. Next, you need to keep people connected, communicating, and collaborating. Okay, and there are ways to do this. It's very, very important. I've touched on a little, but that's like a whole session. That is a whole workshop, people. And we're going to talk about some of that. Defining what a great day in the office looks like. So if I'm coming in and my commute's about half an hour, so I spend an hour on the roads, right, in my little car, listening to podcasts usually, which is fun, but still, it's like an hour of my day that I could have been with my children or my dog. Okay, so you're taking that hour away from me. It better be a great day in the office. It better be a day when I can see Jag, have lunch with him, where I can meet with my team face to face and really have a good brainstorming session. I can have an engaging staff meeting, not a boring dump of information. Okay, so I need spaces that are collaborative. Why would I drive an hour a day to sit in a cubicle at my computer? That's complete nonsense. Okay, so if you're going to get people to drive in and just be at their desk all day, why are they driving in. Why are you paying for the lights, the heat, and emitting carbon into the environment? Like, come on. And then keep people on a level playing field. Again, we need, whether I'm remote, whether I'm there, I'm a worker, I'm a hard worker, and I'm working, okay? So you gotta keep and treat people equally and inclusively. So those are 4 points that I think are very important. The capabilities here of your leaders. So we created a capability model a number of years ago that was based on 680 behaviors that we collected from leaders around the world on what makes a high-performing remote or distributed leader. And these are all very important. And we're able to assess leaders on them. We're able to say, how good are you? How would we predict you are at building trusting relationships? And how can we help you become better at it? Because that's a little bit of a gap. Whereas you're really good at achieving work-life balance and promoting work-life balance in your team. Kudos to you, right? So these are all very important elements that we look at a lot with leaders. And we created the distributed leader profiler. It is a beautiful tool to get a sense of what is happening with each leader or manager. So even the resistors, we worked with resistors on this. One time we did a group of 40 engineers, and they were kicking and screaming because their offices were being created into a mobile environment. This was 5 years ago, and they all went through this and they pivoted. They said, oh, okay, I can see this. I can see how I'm part of the resistance movement, and I don't want to be the resistance. I want to be the good side on Star Wars. Kidding. Okay. So this is distributed leader profiler. This is the different leadership capabilities. So again, we get scores for a leader. And speaking of Star Wars, this is our connected path called Remote Leadership Fundamentals, blended micro-learning for busy leaders. So busy leaders may not have time for a 2-hour workshop times 2, so 4 hours of workshopping. They would rather spread out that 8 hours of learning over an 8-week period and do bite-sized micro-learning with enriching videos, thought-provoking activities, and actors and actresses, like people from our team who are really interesting to listen to and talk, and cartoon characters, etc. So it's a mission to help leaders become better remote leaders. And it is very cutting edge, very, very cutting edge. So if any of your organizations want to demo it, it's a really good way to bring in content in a scalable way that doesn't take too much time, but allows them to develop these habits, these behaviors. So what we also can do is work with leaders, individuals, and teams. Like, all of these 3 groups are important. You don't want to just give attention to the leaders and not the individuals, your people. You want to give them the right skills, habits, and learning to thrive in this work culture, this hybrid culture. And healthy hybrid culture supersedes everything. You need to be focused on, what's my culture? What's our culture, right? At the top of everything. And then these training initiatives, learning, development, they all need to happen as well. But you need to define and understand the why, which is, we want a healthy culture. We want to be the green tree. I just want to encourage you to be careful what you read. There's a lot of, on the news, in the media, on the internet, on social media, there's a lot of misinformation about remote work in the mainstream media. And it's based on anecdotes, or it's based on one organization doing something that gets a lot of attention. I remember when Yahoo called everyone back to the office. Everyone must come back. It got so much attention. And it was a case that actually wasn't the right decision for the organization for a variety of reasons. And, we just need to be careful that remote work is extremely personal and organization dependent. So my experience might be different than what yours was, given how your organization handled it. So we need to look at, what are the facts, what are the data? So when your managers are resisting, let's get the facts straight. And I want you to also remember this point at the bottom. Remote work and physical isolation are not the same thing. And that's why some of your leaders are saying, we need to get everyone back. because we're sick of this physical isolation. No, it's not. Like, it doesn't need to be that way. In a hybrid model, if I have 2-3 days in the office, I get a nice healthy dose of collaboration. I might really appreciate that time to focus and get tasks done and save that hour on the roads. Make decisions based on evidence, okay? And that's what we do. All of our stuff is based on 18 years of research and a ton of evidence. And we're always looking for the latest evidence as this all evolves. Okay. So if you are interested in the distributed work profiler, the connected path, the one with the Star Wars mission, remote leadership fundamentals, we have demos of each. If your organization is seriously interested, we're going to give you a free demo. We're happy to chat. We've been doing a lot of strategic advisory support for future of work initiatives. So whether you're a small organization, 30 people, whether you're 5,000 people, we've been talking to you about how do you do this. So bring us in to consult a bit. You don't know what you don't know. We can help you build a business case to your leadership. We can help you ask the questions and kind of map out the plan so that you can execute it in your company and make it a success. So we're here for you, and we'd love to connect. Jag and I love to connect. We're both, we like to have a good laugh or two, right, Jag?
That's absolutely it. Laura, we did have another question come in. How is your personality? How is your personality and leader assessment different from some of the others that we already use, like Insights or Hogan or DISC or some of these other items available?
Yeah, so I mean, I've used all of those tools over the years in our firms. So I would say those were not created, normed, and developed for remote work. Okay, so that's first and foremost. Our traits are specific to remote work. Secondly, a lot of those tools, not all of them, but a lot of them have 4-quadrant styles, right? So you're A, B, C, or D. It's a color, it's a Myers-Briggs and Insights, D, I, S, or C. It's too basic for remote work. There's lots of nuances, and we need to look at the trait level. We need to look more specific at how each relates to this new way of working. We can't just put people into boxes for this purpose. The boxes are useful for team building and stuff and understanding myself, but not from a remote work context.
So we're welcoming any other questions that are available or you'd like to ask. Just hit us up in the chat box and we'll be happy to voice it here in front of all. Laura, we did get a lot of great comments. Like Dana McDonald had listed, trust and relationship building often happens in between meetings, and it's not always so easy on Zoom. Some of the other pieces, that kind of came through is, to shift to a hybrid model, one can greatly, a shift to a hybrid model can greatly positively impact your EVP, your employee value proposition. Similar to what you said, a lot of echoing of your comments.
Yes. I love that. Yeah, employee value proposition. Absolutely.
So one of the other questions was, is this the assessments that you presented? Are they in a recruitment function, or are they used for a development function? How would the assessment best be used?
Development. So all of our products, services, offerings are around developing. However, now that we're with humans, they are also experts in selection and recruitment, and some of our tools could be transformed for that purpose. So if you have interest, let us know, because we're only a few steps away from doing that. And I think that in the future, in the months to come, the year to come, 2 years, I think that we will be looking for how well does a person fit for working in a remote or hybrid way. So some jobs will be remote, right? So, but I would want to know, is that person going to thrive with remote work, or are they going to be on the left side of that bell curve where they're saying they will, but really it's not going to be a fit? They're going to feel really isolated. They're not going to be at their best and thrive.
It's I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and the way they've been, he's a leader that wants to see, butts in seats, and he thinks that people only work when they're in the office. He just doesn't trust the hybrid workplace. So you know, what he's done to kind of satisfy his own ego is he has everybody on Microsoft Teams all day long, on a web, on monitor all day long,
Oh
and
my God.
he's got this big setup in the office, and the only time you leave is if you're leaving for a product demo or a different meeting, but then you come back to that place. And this is the way he's enforcing his 9 to 5, and it's a professional. This person is managing professionals, so you can see the stress on some of the faces of the individuals. It's some people are making some really big mistakes that will hurt their business, but
Yeah.
everything needs some thought into. I can tell from your face that it's not something that we would
Well,
recommend.
it has
Obviously.
micromanagement written all over it with a bright yellow highlighter. I think it's really not the best choice, but I think it's important to know that as you're in a hybrid, you need to set the charter, which we do a lot of work with charters, which is, okay, what are the expectations, right? So when are we available? How soon do we respond? What communication tools do we use for which purposes, tasks? How do we communicate effectively with each other? So we still need to be accountable to each other, right? But if that leader had a charter like that and could say, okay, well, I know if there's something urgent and I need to reach Laura, I should be, texting her, right? Because she might be on a walk to have a stress break, a half an hour walk in the middle of the day. But if I text Laura, she will answer that because it's urgent, right? So you just need to have rules of engagement and get everyone on the same page.
No, I totally hear you. And we've got another question that just came in. It's, how do you convince your workplace, your executives, the value of hybrid work? I'll take a stab at that before you go into it, Laura. But I think we gave some great evidence at the start, talking about some of the stats, whether it was from one organization or another very reputable organization. These are the key dynamics that are going to drive workplaces moving forward. Laura, I'll let you kind of jump in for the rest.
Value of hybrid work has to come in the form of a business case, because that's the language they like and the language they speak, right? So the business case has to be informed by the latest data, evidence, data, nothing emotional. It has to be data based, and they tend to like to hear what their competitors are doing. So oftentimes we'll look at what the industry is doing around you. So that's important as part of it. And then again, if you can get some data from your people, right? So some survey data about how they have been adjusting, what your people want, right? Asking your people what they want, and asking the data about would you leave if you had to come in 5 days a week? You don't have to ask it like that, but just trying to understand, like, gauge where your people are at with this, and then being able to share that in an aggregate form that's compelling to your leaders to complement the data from other firms, other organizations. So that's just my ramblings, but yeah, and you need to engage their hearts as well. So some of them will have appreciated elements of working remotely. I know this because I talk to a lot of them, and there's a lot of them who they say, I've lost weight because I'm finally having a chance to ride my bike most days. Like, I've heard that out of CEOs' mouths. So just appealing to, do you want to lose that? Do you want to drive 5 days a week? Do you want to spend 10 hours of your week commuting or whatever it is, right? Depending on where you live. Toronto's commutes are way worse than Calgary's, right, Jag?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right? So it's about appealing to their minds first and foremost, but their hearts as well.
That is it right now for the questions. So, kind of in closing, thank you very much for attending. I'm getting a lot of great notes, from people that were attending, that they got a lot of great value out of this, and, they'd like copies of the deck, and we're more than happy to provide that to you. Sorry, I did have one more kind of question come in that I missed. sorry, my clients have said they are far busier working remotely in back-to-back Zoom meetings, far more than when they were in the office. How do you get that balance?
So this is a whole, so this pivot, okay, so we got into habits, right? So now every time we have to touch base with someone, it becomes a Zoom, for example. And that, so there's way too many meetings, and the meetings are not, in a lot of cases, they're not efficient. Too many people are there. It's not well thought out. So we do a lot of training around meeting management, like remote meeting management. There's really important points about how to do that well and decrease the volume of meetings. I would say that in a hybrid workplace, that'll become even more important, right? Because we're going to get the silos. We're going to get, there's 3 of us here today. 2 of them are remote. Let's just meet the 3 of us. It's easier than including the remote. So again, we need to do this and be very intentional and conscious of what's going on. I would say the workload issue is a real thing. People are working harder than ever. Zoom fatigue is a real thing, a real challenge. Mental health issues are at a high right now, which as psychologists, we're very, very concerned. It's almost the echo pandemic, we call it, that we worry about this mental health impact and anxiety, depression, all of that. So I think wellness is more important than ever, and organizations need to be supporting what we call work-life wellness. We don't call it balance necessarily, because balance is kind of like getting on the scale every day. It's kind of unnerving because balance is never perfect. Life happens, crap happens, but what you need is wellness. You need to be taking care of your wellness on a daily basis. And it's the little things that matter. It's building in the habits like the half-hour walk, the 20-minute meditation with Deepak Chopra and Oprah Winfrey that I'm doing right now. Just beautiful. Just if you can build in those habits, it can make your mindset so much more positive during these what can be dark times.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Laura. We really appreciate, and everybody's really appreciated the comment, from the comments and the content. We've had a number of individuals reach out in regards to, getting a hold of the deck and having further conversations. And actually, all that being said, it just had another pop-up that came in. I think the phrase work-life balance is overstated, and wellness is critical, but leaders need to allow and encourage it, not just say that it's available. You need to actually. Absolutely.
It's easy to pay lip service to, right? We value wellness. We bring in apples and oranges to the office, or right? It's like, because you want everyone in every day. That's why, right? So we just need to be careful. And I would encourage you to think, commuting in a car, how does that contribute to wellness, right? It's a question, right?
Yeah, and Nita just said, you got to walk the talk, right? So, get in line with, practice what you preach to do.
Exactly.
All right. So again, kind of keep in mind at the time, thank you very much for everybody for attending. We will be making sure that, you'll have our contact information. We can continue conversations as they've progressed here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Stay well.